Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I had this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I am super excited because I am always interested in investing in myself, in growing myself into a better version of myself, and learning from people who are way smarter than me. So some of you may or may not know, but real estate has been this itch I've had in the back of my head for quite a while that I haven't even known how to get into, how to start even navigating. And the reason why is because it's a different revenue source. It's a great way for planning for retirement. It's a different avenue. I've been thinking of all these different ways. Plus docs, a lot of times they talk about getting your building as real estate and purchasing that when you're buying a practice. But as everything would happen in life, there is a phenomenal guest that I'm so excited who actually reached out to me that's going to go into a lot of these topics. His name is Paul Moore. And he is from the Central Virginia. It's actually funny. He lives in Lynchburg, and I actually know Lynchburg. I used to go coach a couple offices out in Lynchburg. But just so you guys know a little bit about him, he was a finalist for the Entrepreneur of the Year. He was a serial entrepreneur and then realized that real estate was his zone. He originally started out with residential real estate and then switched over to commercial. He's written 3 books, and hello, that's super cool because writing a book for me has been incredibly hard. He also helps manage the Wellings Capital Fund, and he's just a really, really, really awesome guy full of a ton of knowledge, and I'm super excited to have him. So Paul, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Kiera. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Thanks for making time. I know our schedules were a little funky back and forth. So thanks for making some time, and let's dive into this real estate. So I shared a little bit about you, but by all means, share a little bit of your story and kind of walk us through the journey and give us some tips on how to do this real estate game because I literally don't know where to even start. We had a podcast a little while ago with my good friend, who's a dental student right now, who's paying for dental school through real estate. But beyond that, I don't know what I'm doing in real estate. So kind of walk us through and give us some tips today, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So when I sold my company in 1998, I moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains with my family. I wanted to raise my kids here. We had 2 kids at the time. Now there's 4. And we started a nonprofit organization to do work with international students coming from other countries studying in the U.S. And for a high energy type A entrepreneur, 34 years old, that, doing a few retreats a year wasn't enough. And so I was looking for something to do. And my friend said, hey, you can, my friend said, you can get houses cheap, 50 cents on the dollar or whatever on the courthouse steps at auctions. Why don't you take some of your cash and go do that? And so I went to an auction, and the bug really bit me back in 2000, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so my friend and I started buying houses to, fix up and resell. They were called fixer uppers at the time. Of course, the word flip came in later, and it became popular with HGTV and all the house hunters and fixer upper shows. And, the whole country, has gotten a first-hand view of real estate investing through HGTV and all these shows. And so, like me, a lot of people got the bug and they started wanting to flip houses. That was one avenue. Or a second avenue was to build a rental portfolio. So we were trying to do both of those. And my buddy and I were really focused on this. And we found out that it's a lot harder than it looks from the shows. It takes longer. It costs more. It's harder. It's harder to make a profit. And so we did that. I actually built modular homes, stick-built homes, did a subdivision. I used to flip waterfront lots. I've done rent-to-own, all kinds of real estate. And those were the different residential things I even set up a little brokerage where I sold waterfront homes at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia.
Wow.
So have done all kinds of things in residential real estate. And I've seen that a lot of people, dentists, doctors, IT people who are highly paid, try to take the same path. They try to do it on the side. And like me, they find out that it's a lot harder than you would think. Mm-hmm. But we can jump into that if you like.
Totally, because my husband he built custom homes. That's what he did before he went to pharmacy school. And so sometimes I tell him that he's the no man in my life, and it drives me nuts because I'm the yes girl. Like, yes, of course we can try this. Come on, there's a solution. But I think it's because he has a lot more experience, like you, of how hard these projects are, and he knows he'll be the one doing it. And so I am super curious and I'd like to kind of, I know we have so much time together, but I would love to hear, because I think a lot of dental team members are looking at possibly the residential real estate. I know I'm looking for potentially buying an apartment-ish zone, maybe a duplex, so we can rent it out for residual income, but we live on half of it for now. We don't have kids. So I think there's team members that do that, but also the commercial real estate side is super intriguing, and I could be taking us down a lot of different rabbit holes, because there's also and I don't feel 100% educated, so hopefully I take you the right way that I'm trying to say, but there's something about the opportunity zones. Are you familiar with the opportunity zones?
Yes.
I'm really intrigued with the opportunity zones, especially right now with doctors who are looking for commercial real estate, and if that's even a good route to go.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul, you lead the way. You tell us what we're going to want to know today.
All right. So I got a call from actually it was an oral surgeon in the Pacific Northwest not that long ago. And he was excitedly telling me about the home portfolio he was building. He was actually buying pretty nice rental homes to fix up and to rent out. And he said, my goal is when I get to 20 rental homes, I'll be able to replace my income. He said his wife was an orthodontist, and he was going to be able to retire. And then he started telling me about the hassles, the 2 a.m. phone calls with a stopped up toilet or whatever. He said, I was actually just between oral surgeries, and I was on the phone interviewing painters, trying to figure out how to get a painter out. I'm spending evenings trying to fill these rentals with tenants. And he said, then he sounded really discouraged. He said, and I'm only up to 3. And it's driving me crazy.
I'm literally scared of that too. That's what I think of. I don't want to do that. The goal is to buy something, have it make money for me that I don't have to do. Like, that's why we do this. I think it's a little naive thinking.
Yeah. So, and I think that's why he called me, because he said, is there a way to get all the amazing tax benefits? And you mentioned opportunity zones, the other tax benefits, which are incredible from real estate, and the profit and the stability and the predictability. Is there a way to get that without having to get my hands dirty and doing this myself? And so a lot of people realize that the path of doing this part-time or doing it on the side, it's not really that profitable, and they can make a whole lot more money doing one extra, filling or one extra patient per week than they can from the real estate and without all the hassles. So people are looking for ways to do it passively. Now, one way that makes a lot of sense is to jump into the commercial side. And here's why. If I buy a home that needs to be fixed up, let's say I pay $250,000 for it, and it's in a $350,000 neighborhood. Well, if I go in and I finish the basement, finish the attic, put a huge addition on it, I'm being silly, gold-plated fixtures in it and fence it in and put in all these beautiful amenities, and I spend $500,000 on it. Now I've got, let's say, $750,000 in it. If it's in a $350,000 neighborhood, I'll never get my money out of that, because residential real estate is based on comps or comparables. Well, commercial real estate's entirely different, Kiera. It's based on a formula, and it's a value formula. It's the formula is the value is the net operating income divided by the rate of return, or the NOI divided by the cap rate. So if you can find ways to increase the net income, and there are sometimes ways to decrease the rate of return or the cap rate, and that's kind of nebulous at this point, but I can tell you that if you can do that, you can dramatically increase the value of the property. And so, for example, and when you add leverage to it, by the way, safe leverage or debt, it really dramatically increases your income. Here's a very quick example. Okay. We just invested in a mobile home park recently, and there are all kinds of ways to increase income at a mobile home park or self-storage or apartment, which are the three things we invest in. But this mobile home park, just to make one simple example, the new asset manager walked in and he said, wow, there are work trailers and boats and RVs and a second or third or fourth or fifth car parked in front of lots of these mobile homes. And he said, this place looks so cluttered. So what he did is he paved 1 acre near the front of the park, and he put a nice fence around it with a lock and a gate. And he said, okay, if you've got an extra car, work trailer, boat, RV, etc., you've got to park it in there, and we're going to charge you a certain amount per month. Mm-hmm. Well, he spent about $100,000 paving and gating this 1 acre. When it's fully leased up, Kiera, it'll lease for about $10,000 a month.
That's awesome.
Because we'll be able to go out to the community and, get other boat and RV people. Now, check out the math on this. Mm-hmm. Now, $10,000 a month is $120,000 a year. Okay. Now, that goes straight to the bottom line, straight to the net income. Now, remember our formula. Value is net income divided by cap rate, or the rate of return. Now, he paid, let's just say, to make the round number here, $5 million for this mobile home park. That's $3 million in debt plus $2 million in equity. In other words, we put $2 million in cash in, we and the other investors. Okay. Now, using our formula, the value is the net income divided by the cap rate. The income just went up $120,000 a year. Now, assume that the expected rate of return for a park like this in a place like this at this time is 6%, or a 6% cap rate. Take 120,000 divided by 0.06. That's $2 million. He just increased the value of his park by $2 million. Crazy. Well, he only had $5 million in it, so he increased the park value by 40%. But the cool thing is he only had $2 million cash in it. $2 million cash. This $2 million increase didn't get shared to the bankers. It didn't go to the bankers. It only went to the equity holders, the investors. Mm-hmm. So they just doubled the value of their equity from this one simple change, Kiera. And that's the beauty of commercial real estate. And this is why almost all of the Forbes 400 wealthiest people in the world invest in commercial real estate.
Got it. So one thing I love is I have always had a dream to own a parking lot that I can pay people around like a sports arena. I wish that my grandfather owned one of those things that would pass it through the family. Like whomever owns those parking lots, I'm so jealous of. So that's what caught my attention on that one. I'm like, genius, make your own parking lot at a place. Right. But also I will say, and I know we're going to head this way, so I'm going to take us this way. What if people don't have $2 million to invest in commercial real estate? Because commercial real estate, I think the intimidating factor on that is usually the price tag on commercial real estate sometimes, and I could be very naive on this, and this could be my own barriers I'm putting up. So break them down for me. But they feel like they're almost unattainable for new investors going into it. Of course, doctors, they've got they could potentially have the money, but what about people who don't have that? And how much do you really need to invest in commercial real estate? How do you do that? Like, where do you even start, Paul? And how do you make that? Because you're like, 2 million. And I was like, cool story. I don't have 2 million. How do you get 2 million? What are things that you do? Or is commercial real estate, when you have X amount of funds, that's when you start looking for commercial real estate?
Yeah, for decades, commercial real estate was the playground for the really wealthy, the insiders, the people who really understood the business. But thanks to some changes in from technology, the internet, the Jobs Act of 2012 that was passed by Congress, it is now wide open to everybody. There's something called crowdfunding, and we don't do that, but crowdfunding and the mindset of a crowdfunder, it allows people to invest with a syndicator or an operator who's an expert, somebody who has maybe 10, 20, 30 years experience doing this. They have the expertise. And so individuals can invest typically as little as $25,000 or $50,000 into these deals, and then they can get a fractional piece of ownership of that deal. And so our company does something like that. We invested in that mobile home park along with a lot of other investors. And we have investors invest with us, and we put their funds together to put in, let's say, $1 million at a time in deals like that. So there are lots of syndicator operators, whatever you want to call it, and funds out there that people can invest in. And they don't have to be an expert in real estate to get these amazing tax benefits and these wealth building opportunities that, like I said, used to be only the insiders could get access to.
Interesting. Okay. That's really helpful. So is it wise to go to firms or different places or crowdfund? It's kind of what it sounds like the best way. If you're interested in doing this, like, is it a quick Google search? How do you know if these people are good? Because I think a lot of us, including myself, I'm skeptical of investors. I mean, I have definitely paid a lot of money to investors and had zero ROI. So how do you know when you're trying to get into this path, who the good investors are, who the good syndicator operators are? How do you even know how to find them?
Yeah, so I recommend that people spend a good deal of time up front vetting the operator. I mean, if you're going to invest $50,000 or maybe even $50,000 to $100,000 per year for a lot of people, it's worth it to fly there and meet them face to face, or at least do a Zoom call, see them face to face. It's worth checking their references, check their criminal background, Google them, type in, like the syndicator's name. Or the operator's name, and put in SEC violation or criminal or background checks, things like that. Talk to people on their staff. Talk to other people who've invested with them. Take the time to really know, because, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be problems. And you want to know, Kiera, who you're going to have problems with and how they're going to respond to those problems and what they're going to do. And so check them out really thoroughly up front. And then once you invest with them, hopefully you found somebody you can trust to go the long haul with. A practical tip, there's actually, and again, I don't think you need to go through a crowdfunder or crowdfunding website. But a practical tip is there's a guy named Ian, and Ian Ippolito actually made a lot of money selling his company. And then he tried to get involved in this, and he was having the same questions you were, Kiera. So he set up a website called the Real Estate Crowdfunding Review. And you can actually go there and check out what people there are saying about different syndicators and different funds.
Cool.
That's one way to do it.
That's super helpful, because, I mean, I'm like, where is the Yelp on these people? Where are the Google reviews to know? But I love that he has that set up so we can look that way, because I think the fear of so many people, the reason we don't do it is you save these savings and you're super excited to invest, but then you get burned and jaded. So you're just like, well, that's not for me then. When I think instead they always say when you ask better questions, you get better results. But even knowing what are the better questions to ask.
Right.
But so I love that there's reviews. I mean, then you look really smart because people are already asking questions or saying things that you're not even aware of, because you're in the zone of smart people.
It's true. They have questions on there. In fact, we kind of know when someone's been looking on that website when they call us, because they have this really smart list of questions when they talk to us about investing with us.
I love it. It's like I had this guy who was trying to do financial planning with my husband and me, and I had read Tony Robbins' Unshakable, and he was like, "Oh, I can see you've been reading Tony Robbins' Unshakable," and I was like, "Yes, I have." But I agree. Doing your research, making sure you know that. So you mentioned mobile home parks, self-storage, and apartments are kind of where you invest. And self-storage has actually been something we've been kind of contemplating, because we were thinking, hey, it's the reverse of having to deal with tenants. You just manage all their stuff there, which means that you don't manage anything really except for keeping it secure. Can you talk a little bit about self-storage and how you get into that one? This is me having a personal interview, guys, so I'm glad the Denali team's along with this, because these are questions I've really had. But what do you do with self-storage?
Yeah, so self-storage is a really easy business. And this is going to sound a little shocking. Sorry. It's a really easy thing to operate in a mediocre way. And it's a really hard thing to do right. And that's where the opportunity is. Did you know there are 53, almost 54,000 self-storage facilities in the U.S.? That's the same as McDonald's, Starbucks, and Subway combined. Yet, over half of those are run by mom and pop operators, people who just get by. They have the attitude, if we build it, they will come. And people did come for decades. It worked. But now, with the internet and with all kinds of social media, younger investors, people storing their stuff are looking online to find these facilities. A lot of these mom and pops say, hey, we're already full. We don't need a website. Well, sure, they're full, but they're probably charging, decade-old pricing, and they're not managing it to maximize income and managing it to maximize the opportunity. If you add, for example, U-Haul alone, if you add that to a self-storage facility, you can add $3,000 to $4,000 a month to your income. Well, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's, let's say, $36,000 a year. That'll add something like $600,000 to the value of the facility just by a policy and procedure change. Increasing rates by 20% can add 60% to the value of your equity. It's really, really powerful. There's all these powerful things that can be done. And because of all these mom and pop operators, a great operator can go in and buy these, pay them a very good price, a fair price, and then dramatically increase the value. 2 to 3 years later, refinance, give the investors back most or all of their equity, and then run this really profitably for years to come. And that's the type of things Wellings Capital, my company, invests in, and we give individual investors an opportunity to jump in with us into those types of opportunities.
Got it. So you guys really work with the investors that are with you for 2 to 3 years. So they're making money on that. You then pretty much buy the investors out 2 to 3 years later and then go to be profitable. Is that how I understood that?
We don't actually buy the investors out. We just refinance, give them their money back, and then they then they hold on to their investment position with us. So the investor continues to make money, in theory, for 10 years, the life of our fund.
Awesome. Okay. So if is it smarter than because I've had two trains of thoughts as you were saying that, is it smarter to invest with somebody else who knows what they're doing on these self-storage places, or is it equally advisable that if you do your research to go do a self-storage? Because I don't think I'd know half of those things to increase the value of it. Because like my husband was talking to somebody else and they had talked about how they just go and, build these storage facilities and then bring people in. Is it smarter to just like you said, join another investor, or is it, like I said, equally advisable to do it on your own if you research this out?
Yeah, I think if it was the 80s and you just viewed it as a passive income source and you could find a local person to manage it, fine. But it's not that way anymore. We're 40 years into this industry, and there's a lot of tough competition. There are people who actually analyze each individual investor. They say, oh, that person moved from California. They've got a high paying job. We can raise their rates higher. This other person has, and then they analyze them based on their Facebook profile, et cetera. It is it's like the airline pricing model. They might be charging one person $180 a month for their unit and somebody else $220 right next door. Those people don't talk. They never meet each other except occasionally in passing. And so the way to do it right is to find a great professional operator and just join them. That's what my company does. We don't operate these ourselves. We found that there are teams of people who have been doing this for decades, and we invest with them. And we make so much more money by investing with a pro that even if we have to share the profits with them, it's better than doing it on our own, and it's a lot easier.
Okay. Super helpful, Paul. Thanks for that. Now, if we were to switch gears, doctors who are buying their own buildings, do you have any tips for them or ideas when they're wanting to buy their location so they're not having to pay rent? It's becoming a tax savings for them. What do you suggest on that? Are there any areas of expertise within that zone for the doctors?
Yeah, there are about 10 tax saving strategies that people can use if they're buying their own commercial building. I have a friend in California named Ed, and Ed spent years paying an average, he said, of $120,000 a year in taxes. He was a real estate broker and a commercial real estate investor. One day, he stumbled across a tax saving strategy, and he went to his CPA and said, hey, would this work over lunch? And the CPA said, yeah, that would be a great idea. And then my friend Ed said, wait a minute, you knew about this cost segregation study? And the CPA said, yeah. He said, well, why didn't you tell me about it? He said, well, you never asked. No. And it was like, what? And the CPA said, you pay me to fill out your tax returns, not to be your tax strategist. Well, as you can imagine, after the lunch was over, that CPA got fired.
I was going to say, I bet the contract was over too. So thank you for your business.
Yeah, and Ed hired a tax strategist. Now, I highly recommend that everybody find a strategic CPA or a tax strategist. We know 3 or 4 of them. And what they'll do is they can help you figure out all the ways as a commercial building owner to save money, things you never dreamed of. For example, a cost segregation study. You can do a cost segregation study for anywhere from a few thousand up to maybe $15,000, but it will save you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes in the early years of owning a building. Now, Ed, since he started doing cost segregation studies and some other strategies that we're aware of, he has actually paid 0 in taxes in the last decade since he started using these strategies, even though he has the same assets he had before and the same type. So it's really important for you as a dentist or a commercial building owner, reach out to me, reach out to somebody else, find these tax strategists, CPAs, to teach you and coach you to save a whole lot of money on your tax.
I will say on that point, I feel like as a new business owner, which a lot of doctors are, we didn't go to school to be owners of businesses, and yet we run these incredible businesses. And it's really interesting when I talk to doctors, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I really like my CPA. They're fantastic. They're a dental CPA. This year, I got a little savvy and I started working with, exactly like you said, Paul, a tax strategist. And that just came by referral of someone else who said, Kiera, I really think you should chat with this guy. I think he could help you out. It was nuts. In 30-minute phone call, I started hearing so many different ideas that I had not heard before. And I mean, even as you were saying it, Paul, just now, I kind of got a little angry that I had not been utilizing these resources. I almost paid triple on my taxes last year than what I should have because I did not have tax strategy. So, I mean, the month of December was freaking nuts for me because I'm like running around like a chicken trying to do all these tax strategy planning. And my CPA told me that he did quarterly tax strategy with me. And I was a little frustrated because I'm like, no, all you're doing is helping me have money to pay for my taxes. That's not tax strategy. And so from even a consumer side, I will say, a lot of doctors, we've got this love for our CPAs and we think they're great, But I would strongly advise, Paul, you've got resources, I've got resources. Just check with someone else and make sure you really do know those tax saving strategies, because I was blown away at the ideas they were coming up with. And then I talked to my CPA and he's like, oh yeah, I know about that. Oh yeah, I know about that. And I'm like, what the heck? What am I like, what is going on? It was a very eye-opening year for me. So do you have like ideas or questions we should be asking for these tax strategists, or what types of savings we could be having to just to even know if our CPA is doing that?
Well, one thing I would ask is, you can say, do I have a spouse that might qualify as a QREP? That's a qualified real estate professional, and that'll help you offset a lot of gains through losses if you or your spouse could be a QREP. But the main thing I would ask is, why haven't we done a cost segregation study yet? And don't accept that it's just a hassle. It won't really help you that much, or it'll just kick the can down the road. There is documented proof that it is well worth it to do a cost segregation study in almost every case for a commercial building. I mean, if you're even down to a $100,000 or $200,000 building, which most people aren't, you would usually be able to save money from at least a basic cost segregation study. I'd also be asking, am I using all the bonus depreciation that was put in place by the 2017 Tax Act? There's all kinds of bonus depreciation that's available, and it is something that we should be taking advantage of. So there's more, though.
Got it. Thank you for that. Okay, so I guess like someone's listening to this podcast, what would you say? I mean, commercial real estate sounds like the way to go. If you were talking to a team member now, would you suggest any area in real estate, that flipping of homes or apartments? Or would you say reality is you'll probably have better bang for your buck if you go and invest with commercial real estate by joining a firm? What would you say to a team member who's looking for passive income as like a side hustle or a way to build their retirement fund, or even doctors? What would you suggest for them?
Yeah, so you might have more thrill of the chase or the thrill of the hunt by flipping your own house. And if you really have the knack for that, and you know how to pick colors, and you have the construction background, and you don't mind breaking even or making a low profit, then go for it. That's fun. But if you really want to take this seriously and make it part of your passive income stream of your retirement, you'd be better off to find, go to your local real estate investor association. Most cities have those, REIA, or check out a crowdfunding website, or check out a company, a syndicator, or someone like ours who has a fund, and co-invest with them, because you'll be investing with experts, with a team and a track record, and the ability to really hit these numbers, especially now, Kiera, as we record this. Real estate's overheated in almost every area. You've got to make sure as an expert that you really know how to acquire and to turn these properties around at a profitable level. Most individuals can't do that on the side in their spare time right now.
Totally. And as you were saying that, I'm curious, how did you guys do in the 2008 recession? What happened? Because you said you've started this in 2000 and now it's 2019. How did you guys manage when the real estate turned? What happened to your business and all that? Because I'm guessing, and the reason I asked that, and I think it's important, is because we all know we're trending towards another downturn. The market has to reset. So what did you guys do during that time that you feel you're not going to do this time, or prepared you, or how did you get through that, knowing we're headed into that again?
Yeah. So our Wellings Income and Growth Fund, we didn't start those till, much more recently, but I actually was involved. One of my favorite quotes is that investing should be like watching paint dry or watching grass grow. If you want excitement, take $800 and go to Las Vegas. So But I didn't know that back in the early 2000s. So when 2008 hit, I actually had $2.5 million in debt on all these waterfront lots I had acquired and was flipping for very nice profits. And then everything came to a screeching halt, actually in 2007 for us. And I can tell you, if we have time for another show, I could tell you the whole story. But I can tell you that my family made a commitment to start giving. We were $2.5 million in debt, and the recession was upon us. And so we made a commitment to start giving to some nonprofits. Call it, karma, call it, the law of sowing and reaping, whatever you want. We began to give generously. And 13 months later, we were completely debt free in the middle of the recession. So that's what happened to us personally. And that was, I would never be investing in the things I did, 18 years ago, 12 years ago. I wouldn't be doing that now. Our fund is far, far more conservative than we were at the time.
Especially right now. So you're saying if you were speaking to the people coming up, if I'm understanding correct, so clear it up if this is incorrect, I wasn't listening accurately, you would not be investing in residential and waterfront property knowing we're headed into a recession? Or ever again, probably, from what it sounds like.
Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't go back and do that because there are so many more predictable, stable ways of making a profit, of growing wealth, and saving on taxes. And so, no, I wouldn't be doing that now that I know what I know.
Solid. And that's why I want to pick your brain, because I feel like people who have been through that, I didn't go through it. I mean, gosh, in 2008, I was still in college. I didn't even know anything was happening. I was just trying to get my degree. But to hear someone who's gone through that, and there's more, and what you said was predictable, better ways to do it. Why not do that? That's a lower risk with a higher yield. I mean, you might be able to flip real estate, you might be able to do those flips faster and have a higher return. But I feel like that's the extreme. There's always a bell curve and there's some outliers, but I think the bulk of people probably have lower return, lots of risk, lots of heartache and headache and all of that. So as some just like a recap of everything you've shared today, Paul, thank you for being so generous with your knowledge and your information. What would you say would be like, okay, from everything we've talked about, here would be the 3 takeaways or the 3 pieces, like start here, go do this. What would you say would be how you direct our listeners today from what we've talked about?
Okay, great. So one would be understand the difference between speculating and investing. It's okay to speculate as long as you know you are, but it's better to invest because investing is basically counting on a long-term cash flow. Speculating is when your principal is at risk and you've got a chance to make a return. Investing is when your principal is not generally at risk and you have a chance to make a return. So I would always pick investing over speculating anytime. Number 2, I would recommend that you follow the smartest investor in the world, and that's Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett even though he has one of the largest corporations in America, I think it's in the top 3, he only has 28 people or so on staff in his headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. All the rest are partners. He finds the very, very smartest, best partners, and he invests heavily with them. And I recommend dentists and team members, find the smartest, best teams you can and invest heavily with them. And that's what our company does, and that's what I recommend everybody does in the real estate arena. The third thing is make sure you're getting all the tax savings you can. There are so many tax benefits that are all legal, moral, and ethical. Judge Learned Hand in 1934 says no one has a duty to pay more taxes than they owe. And it's really, really important. If you're investing in real estate or oil and gas specifically, or if you have your own building, there are so many tax savings that you can get that I recommend you take advantage of all those.
Oh, solid. I love that, Paul. That was a solid thinker. Okay, so if people, yes, thank you. So if people want to get in touch with you, I think you guys have a wealth of knowledge available. And of course, personally, I would love to get you back on the podcast just so I can keep asking you my own personal questions. It's great. I'm literally getting a free interview here, guys. So thank you, Paul. But if they want to get in contact with you, how do they reach out to you?
They can reach out to us at our website. It's wellingscapital.com. That's WELLINGSCAPITAL, wellingscapital.com.
Okay, fantastic. Let them know you heard them on the podcast. And Paul, thank you so much. Thanks for being generous with your time, with your resources, your knowledge. I really appreciate this. And it's fun. It's fun to talk about real estate because I think so often we get in the whirlwind of our own lives and we're thinking dentistry and this is what we're doing, that we forget there are all these other side avenues, when done correctly, can also save us a lot of time, effort, and energy in the future. So thank you for that today.
You're welcome. I'm just so honored to be here. Thanks, Kiera.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So this is Paul Moore. If you guys want to know more about real estate, reach out to him. We'll obviously have him back on the podcast, talk more about real estate because, guys, that's going to be my next side hustle. I know it is. It's calling to me. I'm picking people's brains that are the smartest in the business so I don't make, hopefully, the mistakes that they made and I can be a better investor. So thank you again, Paul, and Dental A Team listeners. Thank you. And we'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our Dental A Team family. Now, we're going to take it to the world. So help us out. Help us positively impact the world of dental by leaving us a review, leaving us 5 stars. This is how we can spread it to the masses and help even more people grow to a better version of themselves. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for being a part of my Dental A Team family.